In the average man's life, there are 2 or 3 emotional experiences burned into his heart and his brain. And no matter what happens to me, I'll remember November the 22nd as long as I live.
There has been an attempt on the life of President Kennedy.
They are combing the floors of the Texas Book Depository building to find these assassins.
Hello, Mr. President. I'm just a patsy.
Oswald has been shot at point-blank range, fired into his stomach.
Police are working on the assumption that Oswald's murder was to shut him up.
Elements of the Central Intelligence Agency killed John Kennedy.
The story has been suppressed. Witnesses have been killed.
We have a right to know who killed our president and why he died.
In Dallas, preparations were already underway for extraordinary police protection when the president should arrive.
Do you anticipate any trouble on the president's arrival?
Because of what has happened here previously, we would be foolish, I think, not to anticipate some trouble. I don't anticipate any violence.
Down. There's Mrs. Kennedy, and the crowd yells, and the President of the United States.
Looking at how things actually went, it wasn't just a trip to Dallas. It was a political trip, preparing for the 1964 elections.
And here comes the President now. In fact, he's not in his limousine. He's departed the limousine, and he is reaching across the fence, shaking hands.
In those days, everybody could get a lot closer to the president. I was standing behind Mrs. Kennedy, and I saw a hand reach through the chain-link fence and break off one of the red roses.
Thousands of children now swarming, trying to get over the fence. The Dallas police trying to keep them back. This is great for the people and makes the eggshells even thinner for the Secret Service, whose job it is to guard the man.
Well, the trip had gone terrifically well in Texas. Pretty hard to write a script for it going any better.
Thousands will be on hand for that motorcade now, which will be downtown Dallas.
A number of my classmates were gone. They were at the parade. My father had been invited to have lunch with Kennedy at the Trade Center. There was a mood, a climate of excitement.
The speech of President Kennedy at the Dallas Trade Mart will be broadcast by 570 Radio. Stay tuned for the president's Dallas speech at the Trade Mart on 570 Radio.
Yeah, I'm gonna find me a boss, one little sheet in the right. Work hard in the daytime. Rest is at night, big boss man. Won't you help me when I call? Yeah, big boss man. Won't you help me when I call? Well, you ain't so big. You just tall and that's all.
This bulletin just into the KILZ News Terminal. Daylight Dallas, 3 shots were fired at the motorcade of President Kennedy's day in downtown Dallas.
Police radios are carrying that the president has been hit. Corcoran Hospital has been advised to stand by for a severe gunshot wound.
This is Walter Cronkite in our newsroom, and there has been an attempt on the life of President Kennedy.
Let's turn the mic on. I can't hear you, Johnny. What do you want? You want me to move back a little bit? Is it all right now? Is this all right? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the chief cameraman and assistant news director of WFA Television. This is Bert Shipp. Bert, we have brought the people pretty much up to date. Would you tell them exactly what you know as of this point?
Well, Jay, I was standing at the Trade Mart waiting his arrival there. All of a sudden, we saw them approaching. They didn't slow down. As a matter of fact, they were going 70 or 80 miles an hour past us. And then I jumped in a police car and went to Parkland.
These two men come running in. One of them had a large, what appeared to be a machine gun, and they was hollering for stretchers and cots and everything, and the governor, they brought him in first. What happened after this? Well, then the president come in and me behind him, and they took them all the way, both of them, back to the comfort room there.
Albert Thomas, Democrat of Texas, is standing outside the corridor of the emergency room, said he's been told the president was still alive, but in very critical condition.
Two priests who were with President Kennedy say he is dead of bullet wounds. This is the latest information we have from Dallas. I will repeat with the greatest regret, two priests who were with President Kennedy say he has died of bullet wounds.
Malcolm Kilduff, the assistant press secretary, was filling in for the regular press secretary, and then he had to draw himself up to give the most fateful announcement that a press secretary might have ever had to give.
All the cameras were rolling, and I remember he put his fingers like this on the desk and pressed very hard to stop his hands trembling.
Do it again. Go on, Matt. President John F. Kennedy died at approximately 1 o'clock Central Standard Time today here in Dallas. He died of a gunshot wound in the brain. Slow it down. I have no other details regarding the assassination of the president.
I just can't believe it. I feel like someone in my own family is dead. I just can't believe it. Ma'am?
I can't sit up. Like a daze. You don't know what's going on. Why? Why did it happen? Who would have done such a thing is the question.
In the first minutes and hours, chaos and confusion was radiating out from the scene itself. It was very pervasive.
Secret Service agents thought the gunfire from an automatic weapon fired possibly from a grassy knoll.
I saw some police run up this grassy slope. I thought they're chasing a gunman. I ran with them. I got to the top, looked around. A policeman went over the fence, so I went over the fence too. There was nothing there.
The television newsman said that he looked up just after the shot was fired and saw a rifle being withdrawn from a 5th or 6th floor window.
It was originally thought that the shots came from in here, and now it's believed that the shots came from this building here.
I see police officers running back toward the Texas School Book Depository building. They are going to continue searching in that building for the would-be assassin of the president.
The center of downtown Dallas is in a virtual state of siege. They are combing the floors of the Texas Book Depository building in an effort to find the suspected assassin.
In the building on the 6th floor, we found an area near a window that had partially been blocked off by boxes of books, and also the 3 spent shells that had apparently been fired from a rifle.
Crime Lab Lieutenant J.C. Day just came out of that building with a British .303 rifle.
It was a 7.65 Mauser.
A high-powered Army or Japanese rifle of .25 caliber.
A 30-30 rifle.
Much of the first things you hear are going to be wrong. And to some degree, you were constantly trying to separate out what seemed to be a fact.
In Dallas, a Dallas policeman just a short while ago was shot and killed while chasing a suspect.
J.D. Tippett, a good experienced police officer, was shot 3 times in the chest in the Oak Cliff section of Dallas. Then the manager of a shoe store saw the suspect walk into the Texas Theater.
Someone has been arrested in one of the downtown theaters. They don't know if it was the man who shot the policeman or the person who actually shot President Kennedy.
This is a picture of him. He probably does not look exactly like this now, after he's been questioned. That's Lee Oswald.
The president is shot. Then a police officer is shot. Then someone named Lee Harvey Oswald is arrested. Oswald may be a suspect in the assassination. Who is he?
Lee Oswald of Dallas, a former Marine who spent some time in Russia, who at one time had applied for Soviet citizenship.
Description that we had of the suspect in Oak Cliff was similar to the description we had and the man we were looking for as the assassin, but at that time we had not been able to connect the two in any way.
Now, there will be a great deal of confusion. Mr. Oswald is put through the door. I don't know if you saw him. Oswald lives at 1026 North Beckley. He's an employee of a bookbinding firm in the building which the police and Secret Service men believe the president was shot today.
Mrs. Kennedy accompanied the body in an ambulance from the hospital to the airport where it will be flown back to Washington.
Lyndon Johnson had ordered that the body be brought immediately to Air Force One, so there was a little tug of war. They almost shook the crucifix off of the top of the coffin as they were trying to get that coffin out of the hospital.
Vice President Johnson is expected to be sworn in as president aboard an airliner before flying back to the nation's capital.
Johnson wanted to show the American people that the government was functioning without interruption. And also, perhaps, he wanted to show that his predecessor's family bore him no ill will for the assassination.
Lyndon Baines Johnson is flying back to Washington to take the reins of government, at which time President Johnson will have to take into his hands the reins of the most powerful nation in the world.
Is there any doubt in your mind, Chief, that Oswald is the man who killed the president?
I think this is the man that killed the president. Yes, sir.
Is there any evidence that anyone else may have been linked with Oswald to this shooting?
At this time, we don't believe so.
I don't know what this is all about.
Kill the president?
No, sir, I didn't. People keep asking me that. Sir?
You shoot the president?
I work in that building.
Were you in the building at the time?
Naturally, if I work in that building, yes, sir.
Back up, man. Did you shoot the president?
No, they're taking me in because of the fact that I lived in the Soviet Union. I'm just a patsy.
The president?
This is room 317, Homicide Bureau, here at the Dallas Police Station. As you see, they are bringing the weapon that was allegedly used in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy this afternoon at 12:30 here in Dallas.
6.5 apparently made in Italy in 1940.
In the wake of the Kennedy assassination, the Dallas police, on the one hand, they were committing all of the resources to trying to solve the crime.
But you're moving in the doorway. When you get him in the doorway, all right, there.
On the other hand, they were ill-equipped to handle this tsunami of reporters.
Well, I was questioned by a judge. However, I protested at that time that I was not allowed legal representation.
In bringing Oswald out, they were, of course, doing something that you would never see happen today. But they were trying to cooperate with the press with the understanding that there would not be questions shouted at him.
Did you kill the president?
No, I've not been charged with that. In fact, nobody has said that to me yet. The first thing I heard about it was when the newspaper reporters in the hall asked me that question.
You have been.
Nobody said what?
Sir?
You have been.
Nobody said what? Okay, we can't hear you there. Okay.
What did you do in Russia? Oswald, how did you hurt your eyes?
A policeman hit me.
At 1:35 this morning, a complaint was read. It charged that, quote, Lee Harvey Oswald did voluntarily and with malice aforethought kill John F. Kennedy by shooting him with a gun, end quote. Following the reading of the complaint, Oswald said, That's ridiculous.
In summary, what directly links Oswald to the killing of the president?
Well, the fact that he was on the floor where the shots were fired from immediately before the shots were fired, the fact that he was seen carrying a package to the building, the fact that...
When was he carrying that package? The same day?
Yesterday morning.
During 12 hours of interrogation by the Dallas Police Department over the weekend, he told one provable lie after another.
Did you buy that rifle?
Press dispatches you people have been given, but I emphatically deny these charges.
Within a day or so thereafter, when they discovered what a complete nut this guy was, they were satisfied beyond all reasonable doubt that Oswald had acted alone.
There's only one thing that I can tell you, without going into the evidence, that this case is cinched, that this man killed the president. And there's no question in my mind about it.
We plan to transfer this man, not tonight. You men will be here by no later than 10 o'clock in the morning. Why, that will be early enough for you.
Chief, do you have any concern for the safety of your prisoner in view of the high feeling among the people of Dallas over the assassination of the president?
No, but precautions will be taken, of course, but I'm not, I don't think that the people will try to take the prisoner away from us.
We're standing by awaiting the transfer of Oswald from city jail to county jail. And for that report, here is ABC's Bill Lord at the city jail. Bill, what's the situation?
Well, I am presently in the basement of the Dallas Municipal Building, and it is like an armed camp. Police officials are frankly worried. They don't want anything to happen to Oswald. There he is. Here he comes.
Now the prisoner wearing a white spider from his t-shirt. Let me have it. I want it. Being let out by Captain Fritz. There is the prisoner. There is Lee.
He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot. There's a man with a gun. It's absolute panic. Absolute panic here in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters. Detectives have their guns drawn. There is no question about it. Oswald has been shot at point-blank range, fired into his stomach.
He is shot.
He is shot.
Oswald.
It is Oswald. Was that the man that shot the man, or do you know?
That is the man that shot the man.
Immediately after the shooting, our only witnesses that we could talk to were other reporters.
Where did he go, Pierre?
Well, he was here. They just put the gun there. I saw the flash on the black sweater. Oh, yeah, right there. And the guy... Oh, wait, did you see the gun? Yeah. No, I saw him there. He was in the group of men right here.
Masquerading as one of us, or what?
I thought he was one of the detectives. You know, he had a hat.
The situation is now that Lee Harold Oswald has been shot. The man who saw the shot fired said it was fired by a man wearing a black hat, a brown coat, a man that everyone down here thought was a Secret Service agent. We can hear sirens outside, and an ambulance apparently is moving down now into the basement. Here comes the ambulance. And Oswald will be removed now. The ambulance is being pulled up in front of us here. Here comes Oswald. He is ashen and unconscious at this time, now being moved in. He's not moving. He's in the ambulance now, and attendants, police are quickly climbing in.
The ambulance is leaving Dallas Police Headquarters. Where will he be taken? I'm assuming Parkland Hospital. Parkland Hospital, the irony of ironies, the place where President John F. Kennedy died.
Dallas City Hall is normally a public building, but today it was really under armed guard.
Jack,
the carousel shot. Is this a confirmed report as to who did the shooting?
As far as I know, I just got it from Vic Robertson.
Vic Robertson from City Hall reports that Jack Ruby the owner of the Carousel, which is a bar in Dallas, did the shooting.
My statement will be very brief. Oswald expired at 1:07 p.m.
Died?
He died at 1:07 p.m. We have arrested the man. The man will be charged with murder.
Who is he?
The suspect's name is Jack Rubenstein, I believe. He goes by the name of Jack Ruby.
And here is Associated Press still picture of the moment, the split second, as the shot was fired. This is the man Dallas police have identified as Jack Rubenstein, and this, of course, is Lee Harvey Oswald. You see the gun in the hand of Ruby and just about to be fired.
I know my own feelings were, and I think they were widely shared by many, if not most, Americans. This can't be coincidental. The assassin is assassinated in the police station. What in the hell is going on?
Just learned from City Hall from a very authoritative source that police are working on the assumption that there indeed is a connection between Jack Ruby and Lee Oswald, and that in some manner of speaking, Oswald's murder was to shut him up.
Word also in just now from Dallas that homicide chief, Captain Will Fritz, has now said that the case of President Kennedy's assassination is now closed with the death of Oswald. It may not, however, be the opinion of the U.S. Secret Service or the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Our nation is bereaved. The whole world is poorer because of his loss. But we can all be better Americans because John Fitzgerald Kennedy has passed our way. Because he has been our chosen leader at a time in history when his character, his vision, and his quiet courage have enabled him to chart a course for us, a safe course for us, through the shoals of treacherous seas that encompass the world. And now that he is relieved of the almost superhuman burden, may he rest in peace.
My fellow Americans, all I have, I would have given gladly not to be standing here today.
Johnson knows he has to show the country that the ship of state is sailing on under a new captain. But at the same time, he can't appear to be too anxious to assume power. And he has to keep the Kennedy people on board with him. So that speech means everything.
No words are strong enough to express our determination to continue the forward thrust of America that he began.
Investigations into all the facts of these last 4 days may not be limited to the state of Texas or the FBI. Some congressmen already have suggested a congressional investigation.
Johnson realizes something has to be done. He realizes that he has to appoint a body that the public will respect to look into this.
The Warren Commission, appointed Friday night, will investigate and make a report on the murder. As yet, it has said nothing about how it will proceed or when.
Let's see, the time of day was about, well, we're not very far from 2 hours from it.
The lawyers from the commission took 395 depositions, and there were 94 witnesses that appeared before the commission.
Can you say if you still think it was one man?
I think we better not get into that area, you know. The report will cover all of that in great detail.
It is now 15 seconds after 6:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Sunday, September the 27th. As of this moment, The report of the President's Commission is public record. For the next half hour, we will search it for answers. First must come the answers to the two great overriding questions. Who killed John F. Kennedy? The Commission answers unequivocally, Lee Harvey Oswald. Was Oswald acting alone, or was he a member of a conspiracy? The Commission answers he acted alone.
The media had all concluded that this was the most exhaustive investigation. Case closed. Oswald did it alone.
The commission concludes that 3 shots were fired, all of them from this 6th-floor window in the Texas School Book Depository.
The reaction to the report initially was very positive, but that didn't last very long.
This book is the #1 bestseller on the nonfiction list in the country, Rush to Judgment by Mark Lane. It's gained a vast number of readers in the recent groundswell of skepticism about the findings of the Warren Report.
Tell me something about some facts instead of your deep faith in the Chief Justice.
You're accusing them of deliberate malfeasance.
You are part of the media which prevented the American people from finding out what happened until now.
You are alarming the American people.
I say the American people should be alarmed.
The public had been kept in the dark for so long about this, but had an undying thirst, which can only be quenched by getting facts.
We have a right to know who killed our president and why he died, and we can't get that from reading the Warren report.
At the start, Lane was almost alone. Now he's just one among a growing band of doubters. Their books and articles are on the newsstands, they're in the supermarkets. Now, according to a recent poll, only 1 in 3 Americans remains convinced that the Warren report has the whole story.
Because of the conspiracy theorists who have put this case under a high-powered microscope, splitting hairs and then proceeding to split the split hairs, the Kennedy case is now the most complex murder case by far in world history. Nothing even remotely comes close.
The Warren report said that Lee Harvey Oswald shot the president from his window in the Texas School Book Depository. 3 years after Kennedy's assassination, the major question is still a simple one. Did the Warren Commission, with all that time and all these resources, get its answers right? Tonight, we'll go over those arguments one by one, area by area. As the assassination was taking place, a Dallas businessman called Abraham Zapruder stood behind that low concrete wall, looking down at Elm Street.
As the president was coming down from Houston Street making his turn, it was about halfway down there, I heard a shot. Then I heard another shot or two, I couldn't say whether it was 1 or 2. And I saw his head practically open up, all blood and everything.
Where did the shots come from? If the shots did not all come from the book depository window, then there was most likely some form of conspiracy.
I think that the massive head wound where the president's head was literally blown apart came from a quartering angle on the grassy knoll. He struck and his head doesn't go directly back this way, but it goes back and over this way, which would be consistent with the shot from that direction in Newton's law of motion.
Unless the laws of physics were not working that day, the reaction of the president tells us where that shot came from.
Some critics say by the very fact that in the picture you can clearly see the explosion of the bullet on the front side of the president, that certainly indicates the bullet came from the front.
Well, I don't believe any physicist has ever said that. Quite contrary, it does indicate that the bullet was coming from behind. It's a minor explosion where pieces of material go generally in the direction of the bullet.
If you look at the individual frames of the Zapruder film, at 312, frame 312, president's head's okay. At frame 313, 1/18th of a second later, the president is struck in the head. In what direction is the president's head pushed? Not backwards, but slightly forward, indicating a shot from the rear where Lee Harvey Oswald was.
I would hesitate really to say that it is absolutely 100% impossible, but it is highly improbable.
Could a single bullet have wounded both President Kennedy and Governor Connally? The single bullet theory has become perhaps the most controversial aspect of the report.
If the Warren Commission couldn't prove that one shot had hit both men, that meant there were 2 shooters. Ipso facto, there's a conspiracy.
The conspiracy theorists claim that the second shot was a magic bullet. They argue that a bullet would have had to make a right turn and then a left turn in midair. The reality is that Connally was not seated directly in front of Kennedy.
If you figure out the alignment of where the men sat, and if you look down the Mannlicher Carsano, as I did, it is perfectly plain, I submit to you, that the bullet that exited from President Kennedy's throat would have to strike either the automobile, which it did not, or someone else in the automobile.
To believe that it didn't hit Governor Connally, that would be a real magic bullet, one that disappeared in thin air.
I believe that Jack Ruby was a paid killer to close the mouth of my son, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Because Ruby knew people in criminal activities, there was a lot of investigation about a potential conspiracy.
Ruby would have been one of the most unlikely and worst hitmen that the mob could ever get.
On November the 24th, 1963, Lee Harvey Oswald was supposed to have been transferred at 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, the evidence is undisputed that Jack Ruby was at home asleep.
The receipt shows that Ruby was sending a money order to one of his strippers from a Western Union office across from the courthouse at 11:17 a.m.
We know that at 11:20, 3 minutes later, a block away, Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey Oswald. The evidence showed that he was down there anywhere from 5 to 15 seconds. 5 to 15 seconds. If this is a hired assassin who is supposed to have some advanced information, he is the world's best timer.
Jack Ruby was a police and media groupie. Ruby thought he was our friend.
Ruby's act was that of a vigilante. He wanted nothing more to be known, people to flock to his nightclub to shake the hand of the man who killed the president.
Do you believe that Lee Harvey Oswald did not shoot President Kennedy?
I don't want to get involved in the speculations as to individuals, but I will say that there's no question about the fact that there was a plot and there were a number of individuals involved.
In 1967, he announced, "I've solved the case. I found the real assassin."
We will make arrests based on that, and we will make charges based on that, and we will obtain convictions based on that.
Now, you wouldn't have paid much attention to this, except he was the district attorney of New Orleans.
Arrested this evening in the district attorney's office was Clay Shaw, age 54, of 1313 Dauphine Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. Mr. Shaw will be charged with participation in a conspiracy to murder John F. Kennedy.
Clay Shaw was a very well-respected businessman in New Orleans. He had been a distinguished soldier during World War II. He was also homosexual and closeted, and I think that played a part. And then they realized the truth that there isn't anything there.
The case he has built against Clay Shaw is based on testimony that did not pass a lie detector test that Garrison ordered, and Garrison knew it.
Garrison started bribing witnesses, intimidating witnesses.
He said I could be made to serve this whole 9-year sentence, or I could be cut loose right away.
Hypnotizing witnesses.
We decided to give him objectifying machinery to make sure he was telling the truth.
Leon, does Leon have a last name?
Oswald. Would you say these methods were illegal?
I would say very illegal and unethical.
And he had everyone and their grandmother involved in the assassination. At one time it was oil millionaires. Then it was the Minutemen. Then it was a homosexual killing.
Yes, sir.
Do you feel that homosexuality or coercion through homosexuality was a factor in the planning or the assassination of John F. Kennedy?
No comment.
At one point, he had 16 assassins in Dealey Plaza. With that many assassins, I don't know how Kennedy made it to the autopsy table.
Garrison announced he had discovered a code.
Garrison says Jack Ruby's unlisted telephone number appears in address books belonging to Shaw and Oswald.
So you take the P and the O and you use a telephone dial. P gives you 7, O gives you 6.
He just changed the digits around, added digits, added letters,
Who's suppressing all of this information? On whose order?
I'll tell you who's suppressing it. The federal government is suppressing it.
Who in the federal government?
The administration of your government is suppressing it because they know that the Central Intelligence Agency...
On whose order?
On the order of the President of the United States.
Clay Shaw came to court in good spirits today. With his long-awaited trial underway, Shaw seems almost relieved that his case is finally being heard.
The trial went on for 6 weeks. It's important to note that not one witness produced by Garrison survived cross-examination.
In a unanimous verdict by a 12-man jury, Shaw was found not guilty of charges that he conspired to kill the late President John Kennedy.
You know, Blake, our first question is going to be, don't you? Why did you do it?
I would sum it up by saying that any society which allows a man like Jack Kennedy to have the top of his head torn off and then protects the assassins and obstructs any inquiry and attempt to find the truth is not a great society. Information concerning the cause of the death of your president has been withheld from you.
As a reporter, the greatest story for us would have been to find out somebody other than Oswald did it. And we tried hard to do that. But at every turn, with the Kennedy assassination, things pointed to Oswald as not only a shooter, but the shooter and the only shooter.
Lee Harvey Oswald had these dreams or delusions that he'd been harboring for a long time of an act that would lift him from his obscurity.
Oswald used to attend a small discussion group, and he began to rail against this right-wing general, Edwin Walker.
General Walker was about as right-wing as you got in the early 60s. And Oswald saw Walker as an American Adolf Hitler.
And Oswald said someone should kill Walker. He then ordered a rifle with a sniper scope, and he planned very meticulously his assassination of General Walker.
And then he went on the night of the 10th of April, took up his place and shot at General Walker. He was very disappointed to find out that he missed by less than an inch.
It shows his ability to plan, who his target was, and that Oswald was capable of violence.
I think that was kind of the Rosetta Stone, that if you understood the Walker shooting, you understood that Lee was like a cocked rifle, and he could go off anytime.
What fed the conspiracy notion about the Kennedy assassination among many Americans was the sheer incongruity of the affair. All that power and majesty wiped out in an instant by one skinny, weak-chinned little character.
It doesn't satisfy our sense of narrative or justice that a small person of no distinction can be of such historical consequences to kill the President of the United States.
But would we be more comfortable believing that a shot was fired by a second assassin who materialized out of thin air for the purpose, fired a shot, and then vanished again, leaving behind no trace of himself, his rifle, his bullet, or any other sign of existence?
There are two groups of people. There's one group that will look at an extraordinary coincidence, a cataclysmic circumstance, and say, yes, that's the way the world works. There's another group of people for whom that's quite unsettling.
They don't want to believe that something so random could have occurred. Can you believe that you could step off a curb someday and be killed by an oncoming car? Nobody believes in that kind of possibility for themselves, but it happens. Is life that fortuitous, that uncertain?
And for them, oddly, the notion of a conspiracy is more comforting than the absence of it, because if there's a conspiracy, at least there's a plan.
They've lost so much faith in government that they actually think that the government is an accessory after the fact to the president's murder. Can't get too much worse than that.
The assassination changed the trajectory of the 60s. America was a different place on the day before John F. Kennedy was killed. So when you look at this America as a whole in the 20th century, you look at America in the 60s, you really say that day was the dividing point.
I guess in the average man's life, there are 2 or 3 emotional experiences that he doesn't forget because they're burned into his heart and his brain. And no matter what happens to me, I'll remember November the 22nd as long as I live. And it's impossible for me now to this day, and I'm sure 10 years from now, to drive to Dallas without looking at the 6th floor of the school book depository building. And it's impossible for me to drive by the Texas Hotel today and not think of that morning when President Kennedy spoke there. It will always be with us.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Kennedy's standing hold on the public, I think, will only fade if and when we get another president about whom they feel the same way as they currently feel about Kennedy.